Hey guys, tonight we are going to leave the safety of the modern world behind. We aren't going to space, and we aren't going to the bottom of the ocean. We are going somewhere that is technically on the surface of the Earth, but it feels like a completely different planet. We are traveling back to the late 19th century, to the heart of the Amazon rainforest. You are going to be a Victorian explorer. You have your pith helmet, your notebook, and a very misguided sense of confidence. You are about to enter a place known as the Green Hell, where the humidity is 99%, the river looks like black tea, and pretty much everything that crawls, swims, or flies wants to bite you. You might not die, but you are definitely going to be sweaty. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It really helps the channel survive in the algorithm jungle. Also, drop a comment down below and let me know what city you are watching from and what time it is there. I want to see if anyone is actually watching from Brazil. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing on a wooden dock. The year is 1896. You've just stepped off a transatlantic liner, and the first thing that hits you isn't the view, it is the air. It doesn't feel like air. It feels like someone has thrown a warm, wet wool blanket over your head. It is heavy. It has weight. You try to take a deep breath, but it feels like you are drinking the atmosphere rather than inhaling it. It smells of rotting fruit, wet mud, unwashed bodies, and expensive French perfume. Welcome to Manaus. You look down at yourself. You are wearing a three-piece tweed suit, a high stiff collar, and sturdy leather boots. This is the height of British fashion. In London, you look dashing. Here, 2 degrees south of the equator, you look like a steamed pudding. Within 30 seconds of standing still, you are soaked. Your collar is wilting like a dying flower. You are learning the first lesson of the Amazon. The jungle does not care about your dignity. But look up. Look past the sweating dock workers and the piles of crates. Look at the city rising out of the jungle. It is ridiculous. It is impossible. It is magnificent. You are looking at the Paris of the tropics, in the middle of the largest rainforest on Earth, surrounded by thousands of miles of jaguar-filled wilderness, sits a city that looks like it was airlifted straight from Europe. There are wide boulevards paved with cobblestones imported from Portugal. There are electric trams rattling down the street, which brings us to a mainstream historical fact. Manaus was one of the first cities in Brazil, and indeed one of the first in the world, to have electricity. It had electric streetlights before London did. While Europeans were stumbling around in gaslit fog, the rubber barons of the Amazon were partying under electric bulbs. You walk toward the center of town. Your boots squelch in the mud that never quite dries. You pass a cafe where men in white linen suits are lighting cigars with banknotes. Literally, they are burning money. This is the height of the rubber boom. The world has just discovered bicycles and automobiles, and they all need tires. The only place to get the best rubber, Hevia brasiliensis, is right here. Money is flowing into the city like the river itself. It is a gold rush, but the gold is sticky and white. And then you see it, the crown jewel of this madness, the Teatro Amazonas, the Opera House. It rises above the tree line, a massive pink palace topped with a dome covered in 36,000 ceramic tiles painted in the colors of Brazilian flag. It looks like a hallucination. You walk up the steps. You touch the marble pillars. They are Carrara marble, imported from Italy. You look at the chandeliers. They are Murano glass from Venice. The steel beams holding the roof up, from Glasgow, Scotland. The tiles, from Alsace, France. Here's an obscure, slightly hilarious fact about the extravagance of Manaus. The rubber barons were so obsessed with European purity that they refused to wash their clothes in the Amazon River. They believed the brown, silted water would stain their fine linens. So they gathered their dirty laundry, put on ships, and sent across the Atlantic Ocean to be washed in Lisbon or Paris. Weeks later, the clean shirts would arrive back, pressed and folded. Imagine that. You are standing in a place where people ship their underwear 4,000 miles just to get it washed. That is the level of arrogance you are dealing with. You step inside the Opera House foyer. It is cool, relatively speaking. The floor is made of exotic woods, Brazil wood and rosewood. laid in complex geometric patterns. You can hear the faint sound of a piano tuning up, but there is a tension here. You can feel it under the luxury. This city is a bubble. It is a fragile skin of civilization stretched over a wild, chaotic heart. If you walk just 10 minutes in any direction from this opera house, the pavement ends. The electric lights stop. The jungle begins instantly. There are no suburbs. It is just opera house, Jaguar. And the source of this wealth? It is currently the subject of one of the biggest heroes versus villains debates in economic history. We are talking about Henry Wickham. To the British, Wickham was a daring explorer, a bio-spy who, in 1876, smuggled 70,000 rubber seeds out of Brazil, claimed they were rare botanical specimens to get past customs, and brought them to Kew Gardens in London. Those seeds were then sent to Asia to start the rubber plantations that would eventually destroy the Amazonian monopoly and bankrupt Manaus. To the Brazilians, he is arguably the greatest villain in history. They call it biopiracy, the theft of a national treasure that plunged the region into poverty for a century. Historians are still arguing about the ethics of this. Was it free trade and scientific distribution, or was it grand larceny on a continental scale? Standing here, watching the rubber barons toast with French champagne, you know that their party has an expiration date, and it was signed by a man with a mustache and a bag of stolen seeds. But you aren't here for the opera. You aren't here to debate economics. You are here to explore the river. You leave the theater. You head back down to the crowded, smelly harbor. The sun is beginning to set and the heat isn't fading. It's just getting heavier. You push through the crowd. You see your vessel. It isn't a sleek ocean liner. It's a paddle steamer. It looks like a wedding cake that has been left out in the rain. It has a tall, thin smokestack, a wide flat bottom to navigate the sandbars, and 2 decks wrapped in mosquito netting. It is named the Baroness. She looks tired. Her white paint is peeling, revealing the rust underneath like a sunburn. You walk up the gangplank. A crewman, shirtless and sweating, takes your bag. He looks at your tweed suit and laughs. He says something in Portuguese that you don't understand, but you are pretty sure it translates to another idiot tourist who is going to die of heat stroke. You step onto the deck. The wood is hot through the soles of your boots. The smell of the river is stronger here. It's an earthy metallic smell. You look out at the water. From the shore, it looked like a single river, but from here, you can see the scale of it. It isn't a river, it's a moving ocean. The far bank is just a thin green line on the horizon. You are about to travel upstream into the unknown. You are leaving the ice cream and the electric lights behind. You are trading the marble floor for a wooden deck that vibrates constantly. The captain blows the whistle. A cloud of black smoke erupts from the stack, raining soot down onto your white suit. The paddle wheel begins to churn the brown water. Chug, chug, chug. The boat shudders and pulls away from the dock. The opera house begins to shrink in the distance. The lights of Manaus start to flicker on, fighting the encroaching darkness. You lean on the railing. You take a handkerchief and wipe your face. It comes away gray with soot and sweat. You are 5 minutes into the journey, and you are already a mess. But you smile, because this is it. You are going to the Amazon. You are going to see the things that Darwin and Wallace wrote about. You're going to see the pink dolphins and the giant lilies. Or you're going to get eaten by a caiman before Tuesday. Either way, it's going to be an adventure. You are standing on the deck of the Baroness as the lights of Manaus fade into a blurry yellow glow behind you. The city is gone. The opera house, the ice cream, the electric trams, they belong to a different world now. You are left with the river, the dark, and the boat. Let's talk about the boat. From the dock, it looked charming and rustic. Mark Twain saw way. Up close, it is a floating disaster. It is essentially a giant wooden raft powered by a boiler that seems to be held together by rust and prayer. It vibrates constantly. Thump, thump, thump. The paddle wheel at the back slaps the water with a rhythmic violence that shakes your teeth. But the defining feature of this vessel isn't the sound, it's the heat. You thought Manaus was hot? Manaus was a refrigerator compared to this. You are floating on a wood-burning steamer in the tropics. The boiler room is an open furnace located directly below the passenger deck. The heat rises through floorboards. You are basically standing on top of a giant toaster. You decide to retreat to your cabin. You paid extra for a first-class stateroom, after all. You unlock the door with a heavy iron key. You step inside. You immediately step back out. The cabin is a wooden box, 6 feet by 4 feet. It has one tiny window that is painted shut. The air inside has been baking in the sun all day. It smells of stale varnish and dead air. It is not a bedroom. It is a slow cooker for humans. If you sleep in there, they will serve you for lunch tomorrow as steamed Britain. You look around the deck. The local passengers, men in loose cotton shirts, women with baskets of fruit, traders with shifty eyes, are not going to the cabins. They are claiming space on the open deck. They are stringing up hammocks. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The hammock is one of the greatest inventions of the indigenous peoples of the Amazon, specifically the Taino and Arawak, though the word comes from the Taino hamaka. When Christopher Columbus first saw them, he noted in his journal that people sleep in nets between trees. The Europeans, who were used to sleeping on hard wooden planks or sacks of straw, filled with fleas, were baffled. They thought it looked uncomfortable. They were idiots. In Amazon, a bed is a death trap. A bed is on the floor. The floor is where the ants are. The floor is where the snakes are. The floor is where the dampness settles, rotting your mattress and your lungs. A hammock puts you in the air. It is air-conditioned, your back breathes. It is portable, and it is largely ant-proof. You realize you have made a tactical error. You brought a folding canvas army cot. It looks stiff, military, and British. It also looks miserable. You watch a local trader set up his hammock. He moves with a fluid grace. He ties the knots in seconds. He sits in it, swings his legs up, and lies back. He looks like he is floating on a cloud. He lights a cigarette and looks at you, sweating in your tweed suit, wrestling with your canvas cot. He smiles. It is a pitying smile. You decide to abandon the cot. You bought a hammock in the market in Manaus as a souvenir. It's a reed, a thick cotton hammock with fringed edges. You struggle to tie it to the iron stanchions of the deck roof. Your knots are ugly. You hope they hold. You climb in. Immediately, you fold into a banana shape. Your chin is pressed into your chest. Your feet are higher than your head. Your spine feels like it's being snapped in half. This is torture. How do they do this? This leads to an obscure, life-saving geographical fact. The diagonal lay. Most Europeans and North Americans use hammocks wrong. We lie straight down the middle, turning ourselves into a human taco. The correct Amazonian technique is to lie diagonally across the fabric. This spreads the cloth out flat. Your back is straight. You are level. You aren't a banana. You are a king on a floating throne. You shift your body. You kick your legs out to the side. The fabric opens up. Your spine straightens. Oh. It is the most comfortable thing you have ever felt. The gentle vibration of the boat rocks you. The river breeze, created by the movement of the ship, cools your back through the cotton. You realize why the Portuguese colonists adopted this habit so quickly that the King of Portugal eventually had to issue a decree banning priests from saying Mass while lying in hammocks. Yes, that actually happened. They were that lazy. You are settling in, feeling smug about your adaptation skills, when you hear a skittering sound. Click, click, click. It's coming from a wall next to your head. You turn. You are face to face with the unofficial mascot of the Amazon Riverboat, the giant cockroach. These aren't the little bugs you see in a New York apartment. These are Amazonian roaches. They are the size of a date. They have long, waving antennae that seem to be tasting your fear. And just to add to the horror, they fly. They are everywhere. They live in the wood of the boat. At night, they come out to forage. They scuttle across the floorboards. They investigate your luggage. You recoil, nearly flipping your hammock. This brings us to a fascinating academic debate in Victorian anthropology, the noble savage versus the wretched earth. As you lie there, surrounded by bugs, heat, and humidity, you are living the debate that tore Victorian London apart. One camp, led by thinkers like Rousseau earlier and Romantics, believed that indigenous people lived in a Garden of Eden, free from the stress and filth of industrial cities. They saw the hammock, the open-air life, and the fruit as a paradise. The other camp, the scientific racists and hardened explorers, argued that the tropics were a degenerate environment. They believed the heat made people lazy and the environment was hostile to civilized life. They saw the roaches, the mud, and the lack of walls as proof that nature needed to be conquered, paved, and walled off. Lying in your hammock, swatting at a cockroach the size of a Buick, you feel torn. The hammock is paradise. The roach is hell. You are oscillating between I love nature and please give me a concrete room with a sealed door. The boat chugs on. The moon rises over the river. It is huge and yellow, reflecting off the black water. You look around the deck. It is a communal bedroom. There are 50 hammocks swaying in unison, like seed pods in the wind. There is no privacy. You can hear the man next to you snoring. You can hear a mother singing to her baby 3 hammocks down. You can smell the tobacco smoke of the trader. It feels intimate. In London, you sleep behind thick brick walls. Here, you are sleeping in a pile of humanity. The paddle wheel keeps turning. Splash thump, splash thump. It is a heartbeat. You look out at the riverbank. It is just a wall of black. You can't see the trees anymore, just a solid mass of darkness that blocks the stars. But it isn't silent. From that black wall comes a sound. At first, you think it's the boiler hissing. Then you think it's a mechanical siren. It is a high-pitched, electric whining sound. It rises and falls. It is the sound of millions of cicadas and katydids. It is a wall of noise so loud it rivals the boat engine. You realize that the silent wilderness is a myth. The Amazon is a 24-hour party, and you are just passing through the lobby. You close your eyes. You try to sleep, but your brain is active. You are thinking about what lies ahead. Tomorrow, you will reach the meeting of the waters. Tomorrow, you will see the real jungle. For now, you just have to survive the night without swallowing a cockroach. You pull the edges of your hammock tight, creating a cocoon. You are wrapped in cotton, floating on a wooden raft, drifting up a river that contains 20% of the world's fresh water. You are a long way from the Thames. You wake up. It is an alarm clock that wakes you. It is a smell. It is a rich, dark, roasted smell that cuts through the humid rot of the river like a knife. Coffee. You roll out of your hammock, gracefully, this time using the diagonal exit technique you watch the locals use. You walk over to the galley. The cook, a man who looks like he has been smoking a cigar since birth, hands you a tin cup. This is cafezinho. It is not the watery bean juice you get in London. This is jet fuel. It is thick, syrupy, and has enough sugar in it to make your teeth vibrate. You take a sip. Your eyes snap open. You are alive. You walk to the railing. The sun is just rising, burning off the mist that clings to the water. The river looks calm. But then, you notice commotion. The passengers are rushing to the starboard side. The traders are pointing. The captain is leaning out of the wheelhouse. Encontro das águas, Samoan Schultz. You push your way to the rail. You look down, and then you rub your eyes, because what you are seeing cannot be real. Ahead of the boat, the river has been cut in half. On the left side, the water is the color of black coffee. It is dark, glossy, and mirror-like. On the right side, the water is the color of coffee with milk. It is a creamy, sandy beige. And right down the middle, there is a line, a sharp, distinct, jagged line where the two colors touch. But they don't mix. It looks like someone laid a ruler across the surface of the water. You are witnessing the wetting of the waters. This is a confluence of the Rio Negro, the Black River, and the Rio Solimões, which is what Brazilians call the Upper Amazon. They are crashing into each other, but for 6 miles downstream, they refuse to merge. They flow side by side, two separate rivers sharing the same bed, like a married couple that has had a fight and is refusing to sleep on the same side of the mattress. This brings us to a mainstream science fact. Why don't they mix? It comes down to 3 things: speed, temperature, and density. The Rio Negro Black is slow, creeping along at about 2 kilometers per hour. It is also warm, about 28 degrees Celsius, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The Solimões White is fast, rushing at 6 kilometers per hour, and it is cold, fed by the glacial melt from the Andes Mountains, sitting at about 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Trying to mix them is like trying to mix oil and vinegar without shaking the bottle. The heavy, cold, fast white water literally slides under and alongside the light. Warm, slow black water. It takes miles of turbulence and whirlpools to finally force them together into the unified Amazon River. The boat captain steers the Baroness right at the line. You brace yourself. You actually feel the boat lurch as it crosses the boundary. The hull shudders. You have moved from the black lane to the white lane. If you were to dip your left hand in the water, it would feel like a warm bath. If you dipped your right hand, it would feel like a cool mountain stream. But there is more to this than just temperature. This leads us to an obscure, slightly chemical fact. The Rio Negro is basically tea. The water is black because it is filled with tannins, leached from billions of decaying leaves in the flooded forest upstream. It is acidic. It has a pH of roughly 3.5 to 5. That is basically the acidity of vinegar or tomato juice. Because it is so acidic, bacteria struggle to grow in it. Decomposition is slow. And here's the best part. Mosquito larvae cannot survive in it. The Rio Negro is the hungry river. There are very few fish, very few bugs, and almost no crops can grow on its banks. But it is clean. You could technically drink it if you don't mind the taste of leaves. The Solomoist white water, on the other hand, is liquid fertilizer. It looks brown because it is carrying millions of tons of sediment, ground up rock and soil from the Andes Mountains. It is neutral in pH. It is teeming with fish, bugs, parasites, and caimans. It is the lifeblood of the forest, but it is filthy. So, you're looking at a choice between the clean desert black and the dirty garden white. As the boat churns through the mixing zone, you see giant whirlpools forming where the two currents fight. Logs and trees are caught in the eddies, spinning violently. The river is wrestling with itself. This confluence is the center of a massive, centuries-old academic debate, the source of the Amazon controversy. To a Victorian explorer like you, geography is about finding the headwaters. You want to know where the river starts. But with the Amazon, nobody can agree. The Brazilians argue that the Amazon only starts here, where the Negro and Solomoist meet. Everything upstream is the Solomoist. The rest of the world argue that the Solomoist is the Amazon. But if you follow the Solomoist upstream, it splits again, and again, and again. For centuries, geographers fought over which tributary was a true source. Was it the Marañón, the Apurimac, the Mantaro? Depending on which river you choose, the Amazon is either the longest river in the world, beating the Nile, or the second longest. It is a debate that continues into the 21st century, with satellites and expeditions still arguing over a few miles of icy stream in Peru. But standing here on the deck, the debate feels academic. The reality is the sheer scale. You look at the far bank. You realize that what you thought was the other side of the river is actually just an island. The real bank is 10 miles away. The Amazon River discharges more water than the next 7 largest rivers in the world combined. It pushes so much fresh water into the ocean that sailors can drink fresh water from the sea 100 miles out from the coast. You are floating on a moving sea. The boat settles into the white water. The clean, black water is left behind. You are now traveling on the soup. You look down at the beige water. It is opaque. Visibility is 0. If you drop your pocket watch, it is gone forever. If something is swimming just 1 inch below the surface, you won't see it until it breaches. This creates a psychological shift. On the black water, you felt like you were on a dark mirror. Here, on the white water, you feel like you are traveling on a solid road of mud. It feels heavy. The sound of the water against the hull is different. It's a grittier, raspier sound. The sediment is literally sanding the paint off the boat as you travel. The captain blows the whistle again. We are heading upstream, following the Solomoist. You look at the passengers around you. They are unfazed. To them, this is just a morning commute. A woman is washing clothes in a bucket of brown river water. A man is sharpening a machete. You check your map. A beautifully detailed chart from the Royal Geographical Society. It shows the river as a neat blue line with helpful labels. You look at the reality. It is a chaotic maze of channels, islands, floating logs, and shifting sandbars. The map is a lie. The river changes its course every rainy season. Islands that are on your map might have been washed away 5 years ago. New islands have appeared that have no names. You are entering the Varzea, the flooded forest. The trees on the bank are not standing on dry ground. They are standing in water. The river has risen 30 feet in the last month. You are sailing through the forest canopy, not beside it. You see a bird, a macaw, brilliant blue and yellow, flying across the bow. It screams, a harsh mechanical sound. The air is getting hotter. The cafezinho buzz is wearing off. The novelty of the two-color river is fading, replaced by the realization of just how far you are going. You lean back in your hammock. You watch the brown water churn. You are entering the bloodstream of the continent, and you are just a tiny viral particle floating in a wooden shell. The excitement of the wetting of the waters has faded. You've been traveling upstream for 6 hours now. You have finished your coffee. You have adjusted your pith helmet. You have checked your pocket watch 20 times. And now, you are facing the reality of Amazonian travel. Monotony. To the modern mind, monotony sounds boring. But here, monotony is a physical weight. You look to the left, port side trees. You look to the right, starboard side trees. You look ahead, water and trees. It is a solid, unbroken wall of vegetation. When you picture the jungle back in London, you probably imagine a nice, park-like forest with tall trees and maybe some ferns where you could stroll around swinging a machete. Forget that. You are looking at the green wall from the deck of the Baroness. The riverbank doesn't look like individual trees. It looks like a single, solid organism. It is a chaotic tangle of leaves, vines, branches, and roots that have woven themselves together into a barricade so thick that you couldn't throw a stone through it. If the boat sank right now and you swam to shore, you wouldn't be able to walk. You would have to hack your way through. You would move maybe 10 yards in an hour. This brings us to a mainstream historical and botanical fact. The Amazon rainforest is stratified. It is a layer cake of biology. At the top, you have the emergence. Giant trees like the kapok, ceiba, that shoot up to 200 feet, poking their mushroom-shaped heads above the rest. Below that is a canopy, the roof of the forest, where 90% of the animals live. It is a continuous solar panel of leaves. Below that is the understory, a dark, humid, windless space. And at the bottom is the forest floor. Here is the thing that blows the mind of every Victorian explorer. The forest floor is dark. Because the canopy is so efficient at stealing sunlight, only about 1% to 2% of the sun's energy actually hits the ground. If you stepped off this boat and walked into that green wall, you would instantly be plunged into a permanent twilight. It is gloomy. It is silent, mostly. And nothing grows there except fungi and saplings waiting for a giant tree to fall, so they can steal its light spot. You take out your binoculars. You try to find a gap in the wall. There are none. You start to understand why the early explorers called this the Green Hell, Inferno Verde. It wasn't just the bugs, it was a claustrophobia. You are on a river that is 3 miles wide, yet you feel trapped. The forest feels indifferent to you. It feels like it is waiting. As you scan the wall, you notice that the trees aren't just trees. They are coat racks for other plants. This leads us to an obscure, slightly parasitic botanical fact. Epiphytes. In a normal European forest, a tree is a tree. In the Amazon, a tree is a hostel. Every branch, every crook, every piece of bark is covered in other plants. Bromeliads, orchids, ferns, cacti. Some of these plants are massive. You see a bird's nest fern the size of a carriage wheel sitting 60 feet up a tree trunk. It catches falling leaves and water, creating its own little compost heap/swimming pool in the sky. Frogs live in that pool. They are born, reproduce, and die in that plant without ever touching the ground. But the most terrifying resin of the green wall is a matapalo, the strangler fig. You spot one through your binoculars. It looks like a tree that is wearing a corset made of wood. The strangler fig doesn't start on the ground. A bird drops a seed onto a branch high up in a host tree. The seed germinates. It sends long, Thin roots dangling down 80 feet to the forest floor. Once the roots hit the soil, the fig pumps up nutrients. It gets stronger. It wraps more roots around the host tree's trunk. It crosses them, fuses them, and tightens. Eventually, the fig completely encases the host tree. It strangles it, preventing the trunk from expanding. It steals its sunlight. The host tree dies and rots away inside the cage of fig roots. What you're looking at is a hollow tree, a ghost. The tree you see is actually the murderer standing over the corpse of its victim. It is slow-motion botanical violence, and it is happening on every mile of this riverbank. You lower your binoculars. You feel a strange urge to step off the boat, the call of the void. You wonder, could I survive in there? This question is the center of a massive academic debate known as the counterfeit paradise theory. For a long time, Europeans looked at this massive, lush green wall and thought, my God, the soil must be incredibly rich to support all this life. We should chop it down and start farms. But in 1971, an archaeologist named Betty Meggers published a bombshell theory. She argued that the Amazon is a lie. She claimed that the lushness is an illusion. The soil of the Amazon is actually incredibly poor, acidic, and sandy. It is ancient and washed out. So where are the nutrients? They are all in the plants themselves. The moment a leaf falls, fungi break it down and the roots suck it back up instantly. The nutrients cycle so fast they never touch the soil. If you cut the forest down, the soil dies in 2 years. It turns into brick-hard clay. Meggers argued that because of this, the Amazon could never support large civilizations. She believed it was a counterfeit paradise that lured people in and then starved them. Modern archaeology has since challenged this with the discovery of things we'll discuss later, like terra preta, but in your Victorian timeline, the debate is just brewing. So, as you look at that wall, you're looking at a biological magic trick. It looks rich, but it is living on a knife edge of recycling. The sun begins to dip lower. The light changes from harsh white to a golden, hazy yellow. The green wall changes color. It goes from emerald to olive to black. You realize that the wall is not just a barrier for you. It is a barrier for the wind. The air on the river is stagnant now. The heat is trapped between the water and the trees. You see a movement on the bank. A branch shakes. Was it a monkey? A sloth? A jaguar? You don't know. The wall doesn't give up its secrets. It swallows them. You feel a sudden, profound appreciation for the barrenness. This rusting, vibrating bucket of bolts is your only island of safety. It is your protective bubble against a billion acres of things that want to turn you into compost. The captain turns on the boat's searchlight. A beam of electric light cuts through the gloom, hitting the trees. The effect is startling. The trees look flat, like a theatrical backdrop. It feels like you're on a ride in an amusement park, passing through a tunnel of fake scenery. But then you hear a splash. A heavy splash. Something big just slid off the bank into the water. You step back from the rail. You decide that maybe the center of the boat is a better place to be. The green prison walls are closing in for the night, and as the sun disappears, the guard shift is changing. The day shift, birds and butterflies, is clocking out. The night shift is clocking in, and the night shift is hungry. The sun is setting over the Amazon. In any other part of the world, this is the golden hour. It is a time for photographers, for poets, for lovers strolling along the Seine. The sky turns a bruised purple, streaked with violent orange. The river reflects the colors like an oil painting. It is magnificent. But on the barrenness, nobody is looking at the sunset. The passengers are moving with frantic, terrified speed. The traders are unfurling white cotton sheets. The mothers are tucking their children into hammocks. The captain is rolling down the canvas screens on the wheelhouse. You are witnessing the daily preparation for the siege. In the Amazon, sunset is not a time of day. It is a dinner bell, and you are the dinner. The day shift of insects, the pium flies that have been biting your ankle since noon, are clocking out. These little monsters don't sting. They have jaws like microscopic sharks that saw a hole in your skin to lap up the blood. They leave a little red that itches for a week. You are currently covered in about 40 of these dots. But the Piums are amateurs compared to what is coming. The night shift is arriving. The mosquitoes. It starts with a sound. It is a low, vibratory hum that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It sounds like a high-tension electrical wire. It is the sound of millions of wings beating in unison. This is the symphony of the six-legged. You retreat to your hammock. You have purchased a mosquito net, Mosquitero. It is a long tube of white mesh that goes over your hammock and ties underneath. You have to perform the Amazonian entry dance. It goes like this. 1. You stand next to your hammock. 2. You lift the edge of the net. 3. You dive inside like a seal jumping into an ice hole. 4. You immediately tuck the net under your body before anything follows you in. You lie there, panting in the heat. The net restricts the airflow. The breeze from the boat's movement is cut by 50%. You are instantly sweating, but you are safe. You look out through the mesh. The world has become a blurry white fog. Beyond the net, the air is thick with them. They are bouncing off the mesh. Ping, ping, ping. It sounds like rain, but it's bugs. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The origin of the gin and tonic. You reach into your bag and pull out a bottle of tonic water. You mix it with a little gin, medicinal, of course. You aren't drinking this because you are a fancy British alcoholic. You are drinking it because it contains quinine. Quinine is an alkaloid derived from the bark of the cinchona tree, found in the Andes. It is extremely bitter. To make it palatable, British officers in India mixed it with sugar, lime, and gin. Why? Because quinine is the only known defense against malaria. This leads to the massive life-or-death academic debate of your era, the miasma versus vector controversy. It is 1896. The world is on the cusp of a medical revolution, and you are standing right in the middle of the argument. Most of the old-school doctors, and probably you, still believe in the miasma theory. They believe that malaria, which literally means bad air in Italian, comes from the rotting vegetation and swamp gas. They think the fog itself makes you sick. They tell you to keep your windows closed to shut out the night air. But there's a radical new group of scientists, like Patrick Manson and Ronald Ross, who are arguing something crazy. They think the sickness doesn't come from the air. They think it comes from the mosquitoes. They are calling it the mosquito malaria theory. Most people think they are nuts. How could a tiny bug kill a grown man? They ask. As you lie in your hammock, surrounded by thousands of Anopheles mosquitoes, the specific genus that carries the parasite. You really, really hope the miasma guys are right. But deep down, as you listen to that high-pitched whine, you suspect the bugs are the real enemy. The noise is psychological torture. There is a specific frequency to a mosquito's wing beat, about 600 beats per second. Evolution has designed human ears to be particularly sensitive to this frequency. It triggers an instinctive flight or fight response. You lie there, eyes closed, listening. It's getting louder. That means it's close. It stops. The silence is worse than the noise. The silence means it has landed. Where is it? Is it on the outside of the net? Or did one get in with you? You slap your own forehead in the dark. Smack. You feel nothing. You are paranoid. This brings us to an obscure, slightly terrifying biological fact. The carbon dioxide tracker. You think you are hiding. You are not. Mosquitoes don't see you. They smell you. They can detect the carbon dioxide you exhale from 100 feet away. Every time you breathe out, you're sending up a flare that says, "Fresh blood here." They follow the CO2 trail upwind until they hit the heat plume of your body. Then, they look for the lactic acid on your skin, sweat. You are a giant, sweating CO2 pumping beacon glowing in the dark. The net is the only thing stopping them from draining you dry. You take a sip of your warm gin and tonic. It tastes bitter. The quinine is working. Hopefully, you look at the lantern hanging from the ceiling of the deck. It is surrounded by a chaotic cloud of moths, beetles, and things that defy description. There are beetles the size of matchboxes that crash into the metal lantern with a clang like a bullet. There are lantern flies with heads shaped like peanuts. There are praying mantises that look like dried leaves, waiting on the rafters to ambush the moths. The biodiversity is staggering. In a single tree in the Amazon, there are more species of ants than there are in the entire British Isles. You are outnumbered by a ratio of roughly 1,000,000,000 to 1. You notice something crawling on the outside of your net. It isn't a mosquito. It is a spider. A huntsman. It is the size of a dinner plate. It is hairy. It moves with a jerky, terrifying speed. You freeze. The spider isn't trying to get in. It is using your net as a hunting ground. It knows the mosquitoes are trying to get to you, so it just sits on the mesh, waiting for the buffet. You realize you have a roommate, a bodyguard. You decide to let him stay. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Even if he has 8 legs and looks like a nightmare, the air inside the net is getting stifling. You are sweating through your pajamas. You want to open the net to get a breeze, but you look at the cloud of black specks waiting just inches from your face. You choose the heat. This is the reality of the Amazonian night. It is a choice between suffocation and exsanguination. As you drift off to sleep, lulled by the vibration of the boat and the drone of the insects, you have a realization. Humans do not belong here. In London, humans are the masters. We paved the earth. We killed the wolves. We built walls. Here, we are just biomass. We are soft, slow, thin-skinned bags of protein in a world evolved to eat protein. The green hell isn't angry at you. It is just hungry. One did get inside. You slap your ear. Silence returns. You hope you got him. You are standing at the rail of the Baroness, looking down into the brown, opaque soup of the river. The sun is high overhead. The humidity is back to its usual suffocating 95%. The river looks lazy. It swirls gently around the paddle wheel. It looks inviting. You almost want to dip your hand in to cool off. Don't. If the jungle is a green hell, the river is a brown mystery. The visibility in this water is 0. You could have a submarine floating 6 inches beneath the surface, and you wouldn't see it. This opacity triggers a primal fear in the human brain. We are visual creatures. We like to see what is coming. Here, you have to assume that everything is coming. A crewman on the lower deck is fishing. He uses a simple hand line, just a string with a hook and a piece of raw meat. He jerks the line. He pulls up a fish. It is small, maybe the size of a dinner plate. It is silver with a flashing red belly. It is flopping violently on the deck. You lean in for a closer look. The crewman laughs and warns you back with a gesture. He pins the fish down with his boot and uses pliers to remove the hook. He holds the fish up. It opens its mouth. You are looking at a set of teeth that would make a dentist faint. They are triangular, razor sharp, and they interlock perfectly. When the mouth closes, there is no gap. It is a biological pair of scissors. This is the red-bellied piranha. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact, and a bit of a future myth the reputation of piranha as a man-eater. In your time, 1896, the piranha is known as a nuisance that steals bait. But in a few years, 1913, the former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt will come here. The locals want to put on a show for the famous American, will block off a section of the river, starve a school of piranhas for weeks, and then push a cow into the water. The piranhas, driven mad by starvation, will strip the cow to the bone in minutes. Roosevelt will write about it in his book Through the Brazilian Wilderness, labeling them the most ferocious fish in the world. Because of that one staged event, the world will spend the next century terrified of piranhas. But here's the reality you are seeing. The crewman throws the fish into a bucket. Then, without hesitation, he jumps into the river to untangle a net. You gasp. You wait for the water to turn red. Nothing happens. He swims, fixes a net, and climbs back out. The locals know the truth. Piranhas are scavengers. They eat sick fish, dead birds, and fins. They are the vultures of the river, not the tigers. Unless you are bleeding profusely or the water is incredibly low and they are starving, they generally leave you alone. In fact, the locals eat them. Apparently, they make a very good soup, although eating a fish with that many teeth feels like a form of revenge. But if the piranha is the bark of the Amazon, the real bite is hiding in the mud. You look at the shallow sandbar the boat is navigating around. It looks peaceful. But buried in that mud is a creature that defies logic. The electric eel, Electrophorus electricus. First of all, an obscure biological fact. It is not an eel. It is a knife fish. It is related to the catfish, not the eels of the ocean. It is an ugly, gray, slug-like tube of muscle that can grow up to 8 feet long. And it is a swimming battery. While European scientists are currently fiddling with copper wires and zinc plates to create weak electrical currents, this fish has been generating 600 to 860 volts of electricity for millions of years. Think about that. A wall socket in London is 220 volts. This fish hits you with triple that. It is enough to knock a horse unconscious. It is enough to stop your heart. This leads to one of the most famous scientific anecdotes of the 19th century, Alexander von Humboldt's fishing with horses. Decades before you arrived, the great explorer Humboldt wanted to catch some electric eels to study them. The locals told him, "Don't touch them." Instead, they came up with a brutal solution. They drove a herd of wild horses into a muddy pool filled with eels. The eels, panicked by the tramping hooves, surfaced and discharged their electricity into the horses. The horses screamed and collapsed. Some drowned, but after a few minutes, the eels ran out of battery. Their electrical organs were depleted. The locals then safely waded in and grabbed the exhausted fish. Humboldt stood there, watching horses get electrocuted by fish, and realized that nature is infinitely stranger than any machine humans can build. You look at the mud. You wonder how it works. Inside the eel's body, 80% of its internal organs are devoted to electricity. It has thousands of disc-shaped cells called electrocytes. They are stacked like the plates in a voltaic pile, the first battery. When the eel gives a command, all these cells fire simultaneously. It is a biological taser. The eel uses it to stun prey. It shocks a fish. The fish goes stiff. The eel swallows a whole. And for defense. But this creature is the center of a massive academic debate that troubled even Charles Darwin. The evolutionary step problem. Darwin struggled to explain the electric eel. How do you evolve a battery? If a fish develops a little bit of electricity, say 1 volt, it's not enough to stun anything. It's useless. So why would natural selection keep it? To get to the lethal 600 volts, you need thousands of generations of slightly electric fish. But what is the advantage of being slightly electric? Modern science, which you don't have yet, will figure out that weak electricity is used for navigation. The Amazon water is muddy and dark. The eels use weak electric fields like radar to see their surroundings. Over time, the radar got stronger and became a weapon. But to you, standing on the deck, it just seems like magic or witchcraft. You watch the crewman finish cleaning his piranhas. He tosses the guts into the water. Immediately, the surface boils. A dozen other piranhas rush in to eat the remains of their cousin. It is a cannibalistic frenzy that lasts 3 seconds, and then the river is calm again. You realize the river is a machine. It is a highly efficient protein recycling system. Nothing is wasted. Every scrap of flesh, every fallen leaf, every dead bug is instantly consumed and converted into something else. And then there is the kangaroo. You have heard the whispers from the traders. The vampire fish, a tiny, translucent catfish that is rumored to be attracted to urine. The story goes that if you relieve yourself in the river, this tiny fish will swim up the stream of urine, enter your urethra, and lodge itself there with backward-facing spines. Is it true? This is arguably the most debated urban legend in Amazonian history. There's actually very little medical evidence for it happening to humans. Most biologists today think it's a myth or a freak accident. But do you want to test it? Absolutely not. You decide that you will take your showers on the boat, using a bucket, far away from the water line. The boat shudders as it pulls away. The paddle wheel churns up the mud. You watch the brown wake spreading out behind you. You have learned a valuable lesson. In the Amazon, the danger isn't always the jaguar you can see. It is a thing burying itself in the mud, waiting for you to take a step. The river looks peaceful again. The sun reflects off the surface. It is a mask, a beautiful, shimmering mask over a face full of teeth and high-voltage wires. You step back from the rail. You sit in your deck chair. You keep your feet up off the floor, just in case. You are asleep in your hammock. The boat is anchored in a quiet backwater for night. The engine is off. The generator is off. The only sound is the gentle lapping of water against the hull and the rhythmic snoring of the trader 3 hammocks down. And then the world ends. It starts as a low, guttural grumble, like a thunderstorm trapped inside a cave. Then it rises. It becomes a roar. It sounds like a strong wind blowing through a tunnel, mixed with the growl of a lion and the groaning of a dying machine. You sit bolt upright. Your heart is hammering against your ribs. You grab your revolver from your boot, a useless gesture, but it makes you feel better. You look around wildly. Jaguar, you think. A pack of jaguars. Or a dragon. Do they have dragons here? The sound is coming from everywhere. It is surrounding the boat. It is so loud it vibrates in your chest cavity. It feels like the trees themselves are screaming in pain. You look at the local crew. Are they grabbing weapons? Are they panicking? No. The cook is flipping a pancake. The captain is scratching his belly. They look bored. Buggios, the captain says, pointing a lazy finger at the canopy. Howler monkeys. You stare at him. Monkeys? You have seen monkeys in the London Zoo. They are cute. They chirp. They steal peanuts. They do not sound like the gates of hell opening up. You grab your binoculars and scan the treetops. You expect to see a monster the size of King Kong. Instead, you spot a reddish-brown shape sitting on a high branch. It is about the size of a small dog. It has a beard. It looks incredibly bored. It opens its mouth, and that terrifying, world-shaking roar comes out. You have just met the red howler monkey, a Luetta suniculus. This brings us to a mainstream biological fact. Howler monkeys are the loudest land animals on Earth. Their call can be heard up to 3 miles, 5 kilometers, away through dense jungle, in open acoustics. It could probably go further. It hits 140 decibels at the source. That is louder than a jet engine taking off. It is louder than a gunshot. How does a 20-pound monkey make a noise that rivals a steam train? It's all about the throat. The howler monkey has a specialized bone called the hyoid bone. In humans, this is a small, floating bone that supports our tongue. In howlers, it has evolved into a massive, hollow echo chamber, a built-in amplifier made of bone. It acts like the body of an acoustic guitar or a megaphone. The monkey forces air from its lungs into this bone box, and the sound resonates, amplifying 1,000 times over before leaving its mouth. You watch them through the lenses. There's a whole troop of them, a male, several females, and some babies. They are all roaring. It is a dawn chorus, Amazon style. But here's the strange part. They aren't doing anything. They aren't fighting. They aren't running. They're just sitting there, screaming at the sky. This leads to an obscure behavioral fact. Howler monkeys are the cows of the trees. Despite the terrifying noise, they're the most lethargic monkeys in the Amazon. Why? Because of their diet. They are folivores. They eat leaves. Leaves are terrible food. They are low in energy, hard to digest, and often full of toxins. To survive on this diet, howler monkeys have evolved complex stomachs filled with bacteria to ferment the leaves, just like cows. And just like cows, they have to spend 80% of their day lying around, digesting. They are bloated, gassy, and tired. They literally don't have the energy to fight. If a rival troop comes into their territory, they don't brawl. Fighting burns calories. Fighting risks injury. So instead, they have a rap battle. Troop A screams, "This is our tree." Troop B screams, "And oh, it's our tree." They scream at each other for an hour. Whoever screams the loudest and longest wins. The losers, too exhausted to argue, slowly move away. It is warfare by decibel. It is the most civilized way to settle a dispute you have ever seen. Even if it sounds like a massacre, you lower your binoculars. The fear is gone, replaced by a strange admiration. They are bluffing. The whole jungle is a bluff. But this brings us to a fascinating, slightly inappropriate academic debate, known as the Calls versus Balls hypothesis. In your Victorian era, Charles Darwin is writing about sexual selection, the idea that traits evolved to help animals get mates. He is puzzled by the howler's voice. Modern evolutionary biologists have since taken this further. They did a study, which your Victorian sensibilities would find shocking, comparing the size of the howler monkey's hyoid bone voice box to the size of its testes. They found a perfect negative correlation. The monkeys with the deepest, loudest voices had the smallest testes. The monkeys with the quietest voices had the largest testes. It is an evolutionary trade-off. You can't have it all. Strategy A, be loud. Convince the females and rival males that you are huge and powerful by screaming. You don't need to produce as much sperm because you scare off the competition. Strategy B, be quiet. But if you get into a fight, or if the female mates with multiple males, you need sperm competition to win. So, as you listen to that deep, manly, terrifying roar shaking the leaves, you are actually listening to the sound of overcompensation. The louder the scream, the less he is packing. It is a biological joke that nature has been playing for millions of years. The roaring slowly dies down. The troop has made its point. The neighbors have been warned. Now, it is time for their 12-hour nap. You sip your coffee. The adrenaline is fading, leaving you feeling a bit foolish for grabbing your gun. This moment teaches you a vital lesson about the Amazon. Fear the quiet things. The jaguar doesn't roar when it hunts. It is silent. The bushmaster snake doesn't rattle. It waits. The bullet ant doesn't make a sound before it stings you with the pain of a gunshot. Noise in the jungle is usually a sign of insecurity. It is a warning. Don't come here, I'm crazy. It's the quiet ones you have to worry about. You look back at the trees. The howlers are now just lumps of red fur draped over the branches like wet towels. They look ridiculous, but the sound has changed the atmosphere of the morning. You realize that you are surrounded by communication. The jungle isn't a chaotic mess. It is a complex social network. The birds are signaling danger. The frogs are signaling sex. The monkeys are signaling territory. Even the trees are communicating. Though you don't know this yet, trees use fungal networks and chemical scents to warn each other pests. You are the only one who doesn't speak the language. You are the deaf tourist in the middle of a crowded conversation. The boat engine coughs to life. Chug, chug, chug. The vibration returns to the deck. You climb out of your hammock. You feel tired, even though you just woke up. The humidity is already rising. The green wall is waking up. You decide to write in your journal. You open your leather-bound notebook. You dip your pen in the inkwell. Day 4, you write. Woken by demons. Turns out they're just vegetarian cows with trombones in their throats. Nature is an oddity. You look at the ink. It is drying slowly in the damp air. You wonder what other lies the jungle is going to tell you today. You have seen the fish that acts like a battery. You have heard the monkey that sounds like a dragon. We are heading deeper. The map says there is a rubber plantation ahead. White gold. You have heard stories about the rubber tappers. Stories of misery, slavery, and madness. You are about to leave the wild nature and see what happens when humans try to monetize it. You close your journal. The roar of the monkeys is faint now, left behind in the mist. The barrenness slows down. The paddle wheel stops its rhythmic slapping and just idles, churning the brown water gently. You look at the shore. There is no town here. There is no port. There's just a single rickety wooden jetty sticking out of mud like a broken tooth. Behind it, raised on stilts to survive the flood season, is a hut made of palm thatch and rotting wood. This is a Kolakakil, a rubber tapper station. You grab your notebook and step onto the jetty. The wood groans under your boots. You walk toward the hut. The smell hits you instantly. It isn't the clean, leafy smell of the forest. It is an acrid, sour, smoky stench that smells like burning hair mixed with vinegar. A man steps out of the hut to meet you. He is thin, skeletally thin. His skin is leathered by the sun and scarred by insect bites. He is wearing rags that used to be cotton pants. His eyes are yellow with jaundice or malaria. He holds a machete, but he doesn't look threatening. He looks exhausted. He is a Serengero. You are looking at the engine of the Amazonian economy. This starving man is the reason the opera house has marble floors. He is the reason the ladies in Paris have waterproof raincoats and the bicycles in London have tires. He beckons you into the forest. He wants to show you his gold mine. You follow him along a narrow, muddy trail, an Estrada de Seringa rubber trail. The jungle here feels different. It feels worked. He stops at a tree. It is a tall, nondescript tree with smooth gray bark, but the bark is ruined. It is covered in diagonal scars that look like fish bones. These are the wounds of commerce. This is Hevea brasiliensis, the para rubber tree. The man takes a small, specialized knife with a curved blade. He leans in with the precision of a surgeon. He shaves off a tiny sliver of bark. He has to go deep enough to cut the lactiferous vessels, milk ducts, but not so deep that he cuts the cambium layer, the wood. If he cuts the wood, the tree stops producing. If he kills the tree, he starves. Immediately, a white liquid beads up on the cut. It looks exactly like cow's milk. It drips down the cut channel and falls, drip, 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 into a small tin cup attached to the trunk. Latex. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The accident of vulcanization. For centuries, rubber was a curiosity. It was waterproof, sure, but in the summer, it melted into a sticky goo, and in the winter, it cracked like glass. It was useless for industry. Then, in 1839, an American named Charles Goodyear accidentally dropped a mixture of rubber and sulfur onto a hot stove. He didn't ruin it. He cooked it. The heat and sulfur stabilized the molecules. The rubber became durable, elastic, and temperature resistant. Goodyear died in debt, but his discovery changed the world. Suddenly, every machine in the Industrial Revolution, from steam engine gaskets to conveyor belts, needed rubber. And for decades, the Amazon was the only place on Earth to get it. You watch the white milk drip. It looks innocent. It looks clean. But then the Serengero takes you to the smokehouse defumador. This is a small, windowless hut filled with dense, choking smoke. In the center is a fire pit. He is burning the nuts of a urukuri palm. This leads to an obscure sensory fact. The chemistry of the smoke. The smoke from these specific palm nuts contains acetic acid and creosote. It acts as a coagulant. The tapper takes a paddle, dips it in the liquid latex, and spins it over the smoke. The smoke cures the rubber instantly. He dips it again, and again, layer by layer, hour after hour. He builds up a massive ball of rubber. He points to a finished ball in the corner. It is a bolacha biscuit. It is black, smells horrific, and weighs nearly 50 kilograms, 110 pounds. You try to lift it. It is heavy. It is dense. This ball is worth a fortune. In Manaus, this single ball could buy a fine suit, a case of wine, or a night at the opera. But looking at the tapper, you realize he isn't drinking wine. He is starving. Why? This brings us to the dark economic reality of the Amazon. The aviamento system. It is debt slavery, pure and simple. The tapper doesn't own the land. He rents the trail from a rubber baron, Seringalista. The tapper can't grow his own food because he spends 16 hours a day walking the trails to collect latex. If he stops to plant cassava, he misses the quota. So, he has to buy everything: rice, sugar, quinine, bullets, knives, from the Baron's company store. And the prices? The Baron marks them up 1,000%. The tapper gives the Baron his rubber ball, a low price set by the Baron, to pay off his debt for the food at a high price set by the Baron. The math is rigged. The tapper never pays off the debt. When he dies, the debt is passed to his son. You look at the tapper. He is an entrepreneur. He is a prisoner in a jail without walls. If he tries to run away, the jaguar hunters will find him. This economic structure is a subject of a massive historical debate. The feudalism versus capitalism argument. Historians argue about what the rubber boom actually was. Was it capitalism? It was driven by global markets, international trade, and boom and bust cycles. Or was it feudalism? It relied on a land-owning elite extracting labor from a peasant class bound to the land by debt, not wages. Most modern historians settle on extractive imperialism. It was a system designed to suck wealth out of forest and send it to London and New York, leaving nothing behind but corpses and empty champagne bottles. You look around the hut. There are no luxuries here. Just a hammock, a pot, and a rifle. You ask him about the dangers. He lifts his pant leg. His calf is a map of scars. Cuckoo, he whispers. The bushmaster snake. The largest viper in the Americas. It loves the rubber trails. The tapper walks these trails barefoot or in flimsy sandals. In the dark, every single morning. Stepping on a bushmaster is a death sentence. There is no anti-venom out here. He tells you that for every ton of rubber exported, 2 men die. One from malaria, one from accidents or snakes. You look at the black rubber ball again. Suddenly, it doesn't look like an industrial material. It looks like solidified misery. The boat whistle blows. The Baroness is waiting. You hand the man a few coins. It is a meaningless gesture. The bearer will probably just take them. But you feel the need to pay for the show. He takes them without smiling. He turns back to his smokehouse. He has to finish the ball before sunset. You walk back to the boat. The contrast makes you dizzy. You are going back to your first-class cabin, even if it's a sweatbox and your gin and tonic. He is staying here to breathe smoke and dodge vipers. You step onto the deck. You look at your boots. They have rubber soles. You look at the waterproof tarp covering the cargo. Rubber. You realize that the entire modern world, the Industrial Revolution, the telegraph cables, the upcoming automobile age, is literally riding on the backs of men like him. The boat pulls away. The hut disappears into the green wall. You feel dirty. And it's not just the humidity. You have seen the engine room of civilization, and it is fueled by blood. But as the boat turns a bend, the mood shifts. The captain points ahead. The river is widening. The trees are getting taller. You are approaching a place where the soil itself tells a different story. A story of a civilization that disappeared long before the rubber barons arrived. A mystery that science in 1896 refuses to believe. You are about to discover the Black Earth. The Baroness has stopped again. This time, it isn't for rubber. It is for fuel. The insatiable appetite of the steam engine has eaten through the wood pile on the lower deck. If you want to keep moving, the crew needs to chop trees. They steer the boat toward a high bluff, a terra firme bank that stays dry even in the flood season. The crew jumps off with axes. You decide to join them, not to chop, but to escape the vibration of the engine for an hour. You climb the muddy bank, slipping and sliding until you reach the top. You expect to find the usual impenetrable wall of vines and thorny palms. But here, the forest feels different. The trees are taller. The undergrowth is thinner. There are fruit trees, papaya and cacao, growing wild, as if someone planted an orchard 1,000 years ago and then walked away. You take a step. Crunch. You look down. You stepped on something hard. It isn't a rock. There are no rocks in the Amazon basin. It is all sediment. You kneel down. You brush away the leaf litter. It is a piece of pottery, a shard of ceramics, painted with intricate geometric lines in red and black. You dig a little deeper with your boot heel. Crunch, crunch. The ground is full of it. You aren't standing on soil. You're standing on a graveyard crockery. There are millions of shards here. But the real shock isn't the pottery. It is the dirt itself. This brings us to a mainstream geological fact. Amazonian soil is terrible. It is called lattisol or oxisol. It is yellow, acidic, heavy clay. It is leached of nutrients by millions of years of rain. If you try to farm on it, you get maybe 2 good harvests, and then the soil turns to brick. This is why Europeans in 1896 believed that no great civilization could ever have existed here. The environment simply can't support a dense population. The carrying capacity is too low, but you pick up a handful of the dirt from this bluff. It isn't yellow. It isn't clay. It is black. Deep dark, rich black. It feels crumbly and loamy in your hand. It smells sweet like high-quality compost. It looks like the finest potting soil in an English garden. You have stumbled upon the mystery of Terra Preta do Indio, Amazonian dark earth. This leads to an obscure, almost magical agricultural fact. This soil is man-made. You are holding a piece of technology. Ancient Amazonians, thousands of years ago, figured out a way to hack the rainforest. They realized the yellow soil was useless, so they manufactured their own. They mixed the soil with charcoal, biochar, pottery shards, fish bones, and organic waste. The charcoal is a secret weapon. It acts like a microscopic sponge. It holds onto nutrients and water, preventing them from washing away in the rain. It creates a stable home for bacteria and fungi. And here is the kicker. It is self-regenerating. The microorganisms in this soil are so active that if you dig out a bucket of terra preta, the hole will eventually refill with fresh black earth. It is a living battery of fertility. You look around the clearing. This deposit isn't small. It covers acres. It goes down 6 feet deep. This means people lived here, not just a wandering tribe of 20 hunters. We are talking about a stationary agricultural population of thousands, maybe tens of thousands. This discovery puts you, the Victorian explorer, in the middle of a massive historical contradiction. The empty Amazon myth versus Orellana's lies. In 1541, the Spanish conquistador Francisco de Orellana was the first European to float down the Amazon River. When he got back to Spain, he told stories that sounded insane. He claimed he saw massive cities shining in white paint along the riverbanks. He described roads, fleets of canoes with thousands of warriors, and farms that stretched for miles. He said the Amazon was as crowded as Europe. Later explorers, like you, came back 300 years later and saw nothing. They saw the empty green wall. They saw small, semi-nomadic tribes living in palm huts. So the Victorian consensus was, Orellana was a liar. He made it up to impress the king. The jungle is a pristine wilderness that has never been touched. But standing on this bluff, holding a handful of black earth and broken pottery, you realize the terrifying truth. Orellana wasn't lying. The cities were here. The people were here. They built this soil to feed their empires. So where did they go? This brings us to the great dying debate among historians. The reason the Amazon looked empty when the British arrived in the 19th century is that smallpox got here first. When Orellana floated down the river, he was patient zero. The diseases he brought, smallpox, influenza, measles, spread ahead of him like a wildfire. They traveled along the trade routes faster than the explorers could. By the time the next Europeans arrived a century later, 90% to 95% of the population was dead. The wooden cities had rotted away in the humidity. The farms were reclaimed by the jungle. The only thing left, the only proof that they ever existed, is this black dirt under your boots. You are standing on the ruins of a lost apocalypse. The sensation is haunting. You look at the fruit trees, the wild cacao, and the Brazil nuts. You realize they aren't wild. They are heirlooms. They're the great-great-grandchildren of the orchards planted by the people who died. You feel a mosquito land on your neck. You slap it. You realize that the pristine wilderness you came to explore is actually a garden that went feral. It is a post-apocalyptic landscape. A crewman walks past you, carrying a log. He kicks a piece of pottery. He doesn't look down. He knows. The locals call this dirt terra preta. They know it's the best place to plant corn. They dig it up and sell it in pots in Manaus. They are literally selling the ashes of their ancestors to grow petunias. You drop the soil. You wipe your hand on your trousers. It leaves a black stain that won't come out. This discovery challenges your Victorian arrogance. You thought you were bringing civilization to the savages. But the savages had a civilization that engineered the very ground beneath their feet. Something your advanced British science still doesn't know how to do. Side note, even in 2024, scientists are still trying to reverse engineer terra preta to solve global food shortages. The formula is still not fully understood. The ship's whistle blows. The wood is loaded. You walk back down the muddy bank. The vibe has changed. The forest doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels haunted. It feels like a cemetery where the headstones have been swallowed by the trees. You climb back onto the barrenness. You retreat to the shade of the deck awning. You look at the riverbank as the boat pulls away. Now, when you look at the green wall, you don't just see nature. You see the ghosts of roads and plazas hiding behind the vines. The sun is beating down. The heat is oppressive. The air pressure is starting to drop again. You look at the sky. The fluffy white clouds that have been drifting over the river all morning are starting to pile up. They are turning gray. then purple, then black. The wind dies. The cicadas stop screaming. The river turns glassy and calm. It is the calm before the water hammer. You are about to experience an Amazonian squall. And you are about to learn that in the rainforest, the sky is just another ocean waiting to fall on your head. Get the canvas, the captain screams. You have about 3 minutes before the world dissolves. You are standing on the deck of the Baroness. It is 3 p.m. 10 minutes ago, the sun was shining, and you were sweating through your third shirt of the day. Now, the world has turned the color of a fresh bruise. The sky isn't just dark. It is a heavy, swollen purple. The clouds are stacking up vertically, forming massive anvil-shaped towers that reach 40,000 feet into the atmosphere. You are looking at a cumulonimbus incus, the king of clouds. The air pressure has dropped so fast your ears have popped. The wind has died completely. The river is flat, oily, and terrifyingly still. The birds have vanished. The monkeys have shut up. The jungle is holding its breath. Then you feel it, a puff of wind. But it isn't hot. It is cold, freezing, delicious, goosebump-inducing cold. It is the outflow boundary, a blast of chilled air dumping out of the bottom of the storm cell. It hits your sweaty face like a slap from an ice block. For the first time in 4 days, you shiver. It is glorious. And then the sky opens. It doesn't start with a few polite drops like a London drizzle. It starts with a wall. You see it coming across the river, a solid gray curtain of water, moving at 40 miles per hour, erasing the forest as it approaches. Canvas, the captain roars again. You help the crew lash down the heavy canvas tarps along the sides of the deck. You tie the knots with frantic speed. Then, the wall hits the boat. We're air high. The sound is indescribable. The Baroness is a roof made of corrugated galvanized iron, a very popular, cheap Victorian export. When millions of gallons of water hit sheets of thin metal simultaneously, it doesn't sound like rain. It sounds like you are sitting inside a steel drum, and a giant is playing a drum roll on your head. You can't hear the captain screaming. You can't hear the engine. You can't even hear yourself think. The noise is a physical pressure that vibrates in your teeth. You huddle in the center of the deck, away from the spray blowing through the gaps in the canvas. The boat is rocking violently, not from waves, but from the sheer force of the wind. This brings us to a mainstream meteorological fact. The Amazon makes its own weather. In Europe or North America, storms are usually brought in by fronts, masses of air moving across the continent. Here, the storm is homegrown. It is caused by convection. The sun heats the forest. The forest sweats, transpiration. The hot, wet air rises like a hot air balloon. It hits the cold upper atmosphere, condenses, and falls back down. It is a vertical cycle. The water that is hitting your roof right now was inside a tree leaf 2 hours ago. It is the most efficient recycling system on the planet, but the volume of water is staggering. This leads to a fascinating, massive scientific concept: the flying rivers. You are currently underneath one. The Amazon trees pump so much humidity into the air, about 20 billion tons of water per day, that there's actually more water flowing in the sky over the Amazon than there is in the river itself. Think about that. You are floating on the largest river on Earth, and there is an even larger river floating invisible above your head. When that sky river decides to fall, it drops rain so hard it can bruise your skin. You watch a crewman trying to secure a loose line. He is instantly soaked. He isn't wet. He is waterlogged. The rain is so dense you can breathe it. It feels like you are drowning in open air. Suddenly, the world turns white. Crack boom. The thunder and the lightning happen at the exact same millisecond. The flash blinds you. The boom shakes the rivets in the deck plates. Lightning in the Amazon is dangerous. You are on a flat river. The trees are high, yes, but the boat is a metal object sitting on a conductive surface. You are a lightning rod. The captain is gripping the wooden wheel, praying to the Virgin Mary. You are gripping your wooden chair, praying to Michael Faraday. This storm brings us to a heated academic debate in the field of climatology, the biotic pump theory. For a long time, scientists thought that physics drove the weather. The sun heats the ocean, wind moves the rain inland, and trees just happen to grow where it rains. But a controversial theory, proposed by physicists Makariva and Gorshkov, argues the opposite. The trees cause the wind. The theory says that the massive condensation of water vapor over the forest creates a vacuum low pressure that literally sucks moist air in from the Atlantic Ocean thousands of miles away. The forest is a giant biological heart, pumping water across the continent. If this theory is true, it means that if you cut down the trees, you don't just lose the forest. You turn off the wind. The rain stops. The continent turns into a desert. As you sit there, shivering in the dark, deafened by the roar on the tin roof, you realize the immense power of the biology around you. These trees aren't just passive decorations. They are geoengineering engines. They are grabbing the ocean and pulling it onto the land. And then, just as quickly as it started, the violin stops. The wind dies. The hammer on the roof slows down to a gentle tap. Tap, tap. The crew unrolls the canvas sides. You step out to the rail. The air has changed completely. The humidity is still there, but the oppression is gone. The temperature has dropped 15 degrees. It feels fresh. It feels clean. The dust, the smoke, and the sweat have been washed away. And the smell. This is petrichor on steroids. It is a smell of wet earth, crushed leaves, ozone, and distinct chemical oils released by the plants. It smells green. It smells alive. You look at the river. It is pockmarked with millions of little bubbles from rain. But you also notice something disturbing. The river has risen. In just 1 hour, the water level on the muddy bank has crept up by inches. The Amazon doesn't flood like a normal river, a flash flood. It pulses. It rises slowly, relentlessly, for 6 months, then falls for 6 months. A single storm like this contributes to a rise that can eventually reach 40 or 50 feet. You see a log floating by. On the log is a colony of fire ants. They have linked their bodies together to form a living raft to survive the deluge. They are floating downstream, waiting to crash into something dry. Don't touch the logs, the captain warns, lighting a fresh cigarette. You nod. You are cold, wet, and your ears are ringing from the noise of the roof. But you feel invigorated. The storm was a reset button. You go back to your cabin to change your shirt. You wring out the old one. A cup of water pours out of the fabric. You realize in the Amazon, you are never truly dry. You are just varying degrees of damp. You come back out to the deck. The sun is trying to peek through the clouds. The steam is rising off the jungle canopy. It looks like the forest is on fire, but it is just evaporation. The trees are already sending the water back up to build the next storm. But not everything survived the storm. You look at the lower deck. A crewman is nursing a hand that looks swollen. He brushed against a vine when he was tying down the canvas. "Took Indira?" the captain asks. The crewman shakes his head. "Just a caterpillar." "Just a caterpillar?" You're about to learn that in the Amazon, cute and fuzzy are usually codes for agonizing pain. You are heading into the world of chemical warfare. You have survived the sky falling down. Now, you have to survive the things that crawl out of the wet leaves. The storm has passed, leaving the air washed clean, but the crewman on the lower deck is not enjoying the freshness. He is sitting on a crate, cradling his hand. It is swollen to twice its normal size. It looks like a red boxing glove. He is sweating not from heat, but from pain. He brushed against a Donald Trump caterpillar, Megaliopyge opercularis, or the flannel moth larva. Okay, you don't call it that in 1896. You call it a fire beast. It looks like a cute, fuzzy toupee. But underneath that soft fur are venomous spines that inject a toxin, causing pain comparable to a broken bone. The captain shakes his head. He needs the sap, he says. He orders the boat to bank again. A local guide, a caboclo mixed indigenous and European heritage, jumps ashore. He motions for you to follow. You grab your notebook. You are about to enter the pharmacy of poisons. You step into the wet forest. It smells of ozone and crushed greenery. The guide ignores the towering mahogany trees. He is looking for vines. He stops at a thick, woody liana hanging from the canopy. It looks like every other vine to you. He slashes it with his machete. "Karari," he whispers. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The Flying Death. You have read the Penny Dreadful novels. You know the trope. The explorer is walking to the jungle, hears a thwip sound, feels a prick in his neck, and falls over dead. That is curare. It is a resin made from the bark of this vine, Chondrodendron tomentosum. Indigenous hunters boil it down into a thick, black tar and dip their blowgun darts in it. But here is the terrifying reality of how it works. It doesn't kill you instantly. It doesn't stop your heart. It doesn't make you unconscious. It is a muscle relaxant. It blocks the chemical messengers, acetylcholine, that tell your muscles to move. First, your toes go numb, then your legs, then your fingers, then your arms. You fall to the ground. You are fully conscious. You can see the hunter walking toward you. You can hear the birds. You can feel the fear. But you cannot move a muscle. Finally, the paralysis reaches your diaphragm. You stop breathing. You suffocate while wide awake, trapped inside your own frozen body. It is the ultimate nightmare. But this vine leads to a massive revolution in Western medicine. In your time, 1896, surgery is brutal. To stop a patient from moving, doctors have to use massive doses of chloroform or ether, which often kill the patient. Decades later, in the 1940s, doctors will realize that a controlled dose of curare, tobacurine, can paralyze a patient during surgery without killing them, allowing for safer operations. This savage poison will become the foundation of modern anesthesia. You are looking at the great-grandfather of muscle relaxants. The guide collects some other sap, dragon's blood, sangre de grotto, which looks like bright red blood and seals wounds like a liquid bandage. He will use this on the crewman's hand. You walk deeper. The guide stops suddenly. He points to the leaf litter. "Don't move," he says. You look down. You expect a snake. Instead, you see a jewel. It is a tiny frog, no bigger than the tip of your thumb. It is a brilliant, shocking yellow. It looks like a piece of candy dropped on the forest floor. This is the golden poison dart frog, Philobates terribilis. You lean in closer. It looks harmless. It has big, black, soulful eyes. Do not touch, the guide warns. One frog kills 10 men. He is not exaggerating. This leads to an obscure chemical fact. The most toxic animal on Earth. The skin of this single tiny frog contains about 1 milligram of batrachotoxin. That is enough to kill 10 to 20 humans or 2 African bull elephants. The poison is a neurotoxin that keeps your nerve channels open. It causes your nerves to fire uncontrollably. Your heart contracts and never relaxes. You die of cardiac arrest in minutes. There is no antidote. None. Even today, in 2024, if you get a lethal dose of this, you die. But here's the mystery that baffles Victorian science. The diet paradox. If you take this frog and put it in a terrarium in London and feed it crickets, it becomes harmless. Its children are born non-toxic. The frog doesn't make the poison. It steals it. It eats tiny beetles, Malarid beetles, on the forest floor that contain the toxin. The frog sequesters a poison in its skin glands. It is a chemical thief. So, the green hell isn't just killing you. It is arming the animals to kill you too. You back away from a frog, slowly. You will never look at a toad in an English garden the same way again. This walk through a jungle pharmacy brings us to a massive academic debate. Ethnobotany versus biopiracy. You are standing in a library. Every plant around you is a book containing millions of years of chemical evolution. The indigenous shamans know how to read these books. They know that this bark cures malaria, quinine. This leaf numbs toothaches, coca, and this sap kills parasites. But Western science in 1896 generally dismisses this as witchcraft or superstition. The debate is, who owns this knowledge? Later in history, pharmaceutical companies will come here. They will ask the shaman, what cures cancer? The shaman will show them the rosy periwinkle. The company will take the plant, patent the drugs for Christine, make billions, and the shaman's tribe will get nothing. Is it science or is it theft? You watch the guide harvest the red sap. He mutters a prayer to the spirit of the tree. To him, the medicine works because the spirit allows it. To you, it works because of alkaloids. You realize that you are both right. As you head back to the boat, you pass a vine that looks like a twisted rope. The guide taps it. Ayahuasca, he says. The vine of the soul. He tells you it creates visions. It lets you talk to the jaguar spirits. It lets you see your own death. You politely decline. You have enough trouble with the gin and tonic. You don't need to vomit for 6 hours while hallucinating that a giant anaconda is eating your childhood memories. You return to the boat. The crewman's hand is slathered in the red sap. He looks relieved. The pain is subsiding. You climb to the upper deck. You feel a strange respect for this place. In London, you go to a pharmacy to buy a bottle of pills made in a factory. Here, the pharmacy is alive. It grows on trees. It hops on the ground. And if you take the wrong dose or touch the wrong shelf, the pharmacy executes you. The sun is setting again. The golden hour is shorter today. The shadows are stretching out from the bank, reaching for the boat like dark fingers. You feel a prick on your neck. You slap it violently. It's just a mosquito, not a dart. You breathe a sigh of relief. But as the light fails, you get the sensation that you are being watched. Not by a bug, not by a frog, by something big. You look at the riverbank. The trees are black silhouettes against the purple sky. And there, in the gap between two roots, you see two small, gold-green lights reflecting the last sun. Eyes! They don't blink. They are low to the ground, and they are focused entirely on you. The king has arrived. You are frozen at the rail of the Baroness. The sun has vanished, dragging the last of the light down with it. The riverbank is now a wall of charcoal gray, but the eyes remain. Two glowing orbs, reflecting the faint light of the boat's lantern. They are low to the ground, wide-set and unblinking. They are burning with a cold, predatory intelligence. The crewman near you stops working. He follows your gaze. He stiffens. He whispers a single word, a word that commands more respect in South America than emperor or president. Onça. You're looking at the jaguar, Panthera onca. For a Victorian explorer, this is the holy grail. You have read the accounts. You know it is the third largest cat in the world, after the tiger and the lion, but it is the undisputed king of the Americas. The eyes move. The creature steps out of the shadows and onto the mud bank. It is magnificent. It is terrifying. It is stockier than a leopard. It is built like a bulldog mixed with a tank. Its legs are short and thick, packed with muscle. Its chest is barrel-shaped. And its coat, you grab your binoculars. Even in the gloom, you can see the pattern. This brings us to a mainstream biological distinction. The rosette. People often confuse leopards, Africa/Asia, with jaguars, Americas. They both have spots. But look closer. The leopard has simple black spots. The jaguar has rosettes, broken black circles with smaller than inside them. It looks like a flower or an eye. The jaguar on the bank yawns. It isn't a sleepy yawn. It is a display of weaponry. This leads to a terrifying physical fact. The skull crusher. You might think lions or tigers are the scariest biters. They are bigger, yes, but pound for pound, the jaguar has the strongest bite force of any big cat. Lions and tigers kill by suffocation. They grab the throat and hold on for 10 minutes until the prey passes out. It is a slow, wrestling match. The jaguar doesn't have time for that. The jaguar has a unique killing method found in no other cat: temporal piercing. It bites directly through the skull. Its canine teeth are designed to punch through bone and pierce the brain. It bites straight through the temporal bones of the skull, turning the lights out instantly. It crunches through turtle shells like they're potato chips. It bites through the armored skulls of caimans. If that cat decided to board your boat, your pith helmet wouldn't save you. Your skull would pop like a grape. The jaguar walks to the water's edge. It looks at the river. You expect it to back away. Cats hate water, right? You have a tabby cat at home in London that scratches you if you even splash it. The jaguar steps into the river. It wades and up to its chest. It starts to swim. This brings us to an obscure, slightly unsettling behavioral fact. The aquatic cat. Jaguars love water. They are excellent swimmers. They have been known to swim across the Panama Canal. They hunt in the water. They will dive to the bottom of a river to catch a fish. Seeing a 200-pound cat swimming toward you with the ease of a Labrador retriever creates a very specific kind of cognitive dissonance. You thought the water was your moat. It is not. The moat is his highway. But this one isn't swimming toward the barrenness. It is just cooling off, or perhaps crossing to an island. It ignores you completely. This indifference is chilling. If a lion sees you, it assesses you threat or food. The jaguar sees you and thinks, irrelevant. You are an intruder in his house, and he is confident enough to ignore you. But the locals tell stories that suggest the jaguar is not always so indifferent. The guide whispers to you about the Pied Piper of the jungle. This is the theory of aggressive mimicry. Indigenous hunters swear that the jaguar can mimic the calls of other animals. It hides in the bushes and makes a soft, distressed cry of a baby monkey. The adult monkeys, hearing a baby in trouble, come down from the canopy to help. Snap, the jaguar gets a monkey dinner. Victorian scientists dismiss this as folklore. But modern biology has actually found evidence of wildcats, like the margay, mimicking prey calls. The jaguar is smart enough to set traps. As you watch the massive head gliding through the black water, you ponder a massive academic debate in anthropology and ecology. The Pleistocene rewilding in the human fear landscape. Why are humans so terrified of big cats? Evolutionary psychologists argue that our brains were sculpted by predators. We spent millions of years on the African savanna being eaten by leopards and lions. We have a snake detection module and a big cat detection module hardwired into our DNA. But in the Americas, the story is different. Humans arrived here later, about 15,000 to 20,000 years ago. They met the jaguar. The debate is, did the jaguar shape Amazonian culture, or did culture shape the jaguar? Every single indigenous culture in the Amazon worships the jaguar. It is a god of fire, the god of night, the shape-shifting shaman. In Olmec and Maya art, humans transform into jaguars. Some anthropologists argue that the jaguar is the keystone predator of the human mind in the Americas. It is the physical embodiment of the jungle's power. It represents the thing that sees in the dark when we cannot. But here's the strange part. Jaguars rarely eat humans. Compared to tigers in India, who kill hundreds, or lions in Africa, jaguars are surprisingly shy. There are very few confirmed records of man-eaters. Why? Some theories suggest that because indigenous peoples had blowguns and poison curare, they became too dangerous to hunt. The jaguars that attacked humans were killed instantly. The jaguars that avoided humans survived. We literally domesticated them through fear. We taught the king of the jungle to leave us alone. The jaguar climbs out on the far bank. Its coat is sleek and wet, shining like oil. It shakes itself, sending a spray of water into the air. It turns its head and looks at the boat one last time. The distance is about 100 yards, but you feel the connection. It is the gaze of the other. In London, you look at animals in cages. You are the observer. They are the spectacle. Here, the roles are reversed. You are the noisy, smelly, clumsy spectacle floating on a raft. He is the observer. He is deciding whether you are worth the calorie expenditure. He decides you are not. He turns and melts into the green wall. He doesn't fade away. He vanishes. 1 second he is there. The next he is part of the shadows. The camouflage is perfect. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. The crewman relaxes. He lights a cigarette, his hand shaking slightly. He is the owner. The crewman says, "We are just guests." You sit back in your deck chair. You feel a sudden urge to go inside, to be behind a wall, but the cabin is too hot. So you stay on deck in the open, exposed. The night feels different now. Before it was just dark. Now it is occupied. You know what is out there. You know that those rosettes are moving to the undergrowth, silent as smoke, strong enough to crush a skull, smart enough to mimic a baby. You realize that apex predator isn't just a biology term. It is a feeling. It is a feeling of knowing that you are not the top of the food chain. The boat engine chugs on. The current pulls at the hull. You take a sip of your warm gin. You toast the darkness. To the king, you whisper. But the jungle isn't done with you yet. The jaguar was the king of the land. But you are on the river. And the river has its own royalty. And unlike the jaguar, the royalty of the river is pink and apparently very charming. You are about to meet the Bodo. and you might want to hide your wife. You are leaning over the rail of the Baroness, nursing a lukewarm cup of tea. The terror of the jaguar has faded with the daylight. The sun is high, turning the river into a blinding mirror of beige light. You are bored again. You are staring at the water, expecting the usual debris, a log, a patch of grass, maybe a dead fish. Then, the water breaks. Puese, a creature surfaces right next to the boat. It exhales moist air from a blowhole. It rolls over. Your brain stops working for a second, because the animal you're looking at is not gray. It is not brown. It is not black. It is pink. Shockingly, aggressively pink. It looks like a giant piece of bubble gum or a raw sausage or a sunburned tourist floating in the water. You rub your eyes. Did the heat finally get to you? Did the ayahuasca guide slip something into your tea? No. The creature blinks at you with a small, beady eye, smiles a crooked, toothy smile, and slips back under the water. You've just met the Bodo Ineageofrensis, the Amazon river dolphin. This brings us to a mainstream biological fact. Why on earth is it pink? Flamingos are pink because they eat shrimp, but the Bodo doesn't eat shrimp. It eats fish. The color is actually a mystery that Victorian science struggled with. Young bodice are gray. As they get older, they turn pink. The leading theory today is that it's a combination of scar tissue from fighting other dolphins and thin skin. The capillaries, blood vessels, are very close to the surface. Basically, the dolphin is blushing. When it gets excited or active or hot, it flushes pinker. You are looking at a 400-pound predator that is permanently embarrassed. You watch it surface again. It doesn't look like the sleek, graceful dolphins you see in Greek mosaics or ocean paintings. The ocean dolphin flipper is a torpedo. It is stiff, fast, and aerodynamic. The Bodo is lumpy. It has a bulging forehead that looks like a melon. Its beak is long and thin, filled with gnarly teeth. It looks prehistoric. It looks like a failed experiment. But then, it does something that makes you spill your tea. It turns its head. It doesn't turn its whole body. It just turns its neck. It looks 90 degrees to the left, then 90 degrees to the right, nodding at you like a human. This leads to an obscure anatomical fact: the unfused vertebrae. Ocean dolphins have fused neck vertebrae. Their heads are locked in place for stability at high speeds. They are living missiles. The Amazon River dolphin has unfused cervical vertebrae. It has a neck. It can turn its head, look over its shoulder, and look down. Why? Because it doesn't swim in the open ocean. It swims in the Varzea, the flooded forest. When the river rises 40 feet, the Bodo swims into the forest. It navigates between the tree trunks. It hunts fish hiding in the roots. It needs to be flexible. It can actually swim backwards. It maneuvers like a helicopter, not a jet. But looking at it is unsettling. When an ocean dolphin looks at you, it looks like a fish mammal. When a Bodo looks at you, turning its neck, bulging its forehead, smiling that weird human-like smile, it looks like a person trapped in a suit. And that look is the origin of the strangest, most enduring legend in the Amazon. The crewman next to you crosses himself. He doesn't look delighted. He looks suspicious. Encantado, he mutters. The enchanted one. He tells you the story. He swears it is true. He knows a woman in the next village who danced with one. This is the legend of the Bodo Encantado. The story goes at night, during the Festas Juninas, June festivals. The pink dolphin climbs out of the river. It transforms. It sheds its pink skin and becomes a handsome young man. He is tall. He is charming. He is the best dancer at the party. He wears a bright white linen suit. And this is the crucial detail. He always wears a hat. Why? To hide his blowhole, which is still on the top of his head. He enters the village. He seduces the most beautiful young woman. He takes her down to the riverbank. They make love under the moon. And then, before dawn, he jumps back into the water and turns back into a dolphin, leaving the girl pregnant. You laugh. It sounds like a fairy tale. But the crewman is serious. In the Amazon, if a young woman gets pregnant and doesn't know or won't say who the father is, the official explanation is FOI O Bodo. It was a dolphin. For centuries, child of the Bodo has been put on actual birth certificates. This brings us to a massive anthropological and social debate. Myth as a social escape valve. Anthropologists argue that the Bodo legend serves a vital social function. In a strict religious, patriarchal society, like Catholic Brazil in the 19th century, what happens when a girl gets pregnant out of wedlock, or as a result of incest, or by a married man? It is a scandal. It brings shame. It can ruin lives. The Bodo offers a supernatural alibi. If it was the Bodo, it wasn't a sin, it was magic. It wasn't her fault. She was enchanted. The myth protects the woman and the child from social ostracization. The dolphin child is accepted because you can't blame a girl for falling for a magical river prince. So, as you look at that pink, lumpy creature bobbing in the water, you realize he isn't just an animal. He is the scapegoat of the Amazon. He takes the blame for human desires. The Bodo spits a jet of water at the boat. Yes, they do that. Ocean dolphins jump. Amazon dolphins spit. He seems to be mocking you. You wonder about the intelligence behind those eyes. The Bodo has a brain capacity 40% larger than humans. It uses sonar so advanced that the U.S. Navy has spent millions trying to replicate it. In the murky brown water where eyes are useless, the Bodo sees with sound. He can detect a fish hiding in mud from 50 feet away by the texture of its scales. He knows you are there. He can probably see the bones inside your body with his sonar. He knows you are a sweaty, tweed-wearing sack of calcium and anxiety. He dives. He doesn't splash. He just dissolves into the brown soup. You wait for him to come back. He doesn't. But then, you see a second dolphin. This one is smaller and gray. Tucuxi, the guide says. This is the other dolphin, Sotalia fluviatilis. It looks like a mini ocean dolphin. It jumps. It plays. The locals like the Tucuxi. They think it is friendly. They think it saves drowning people. But they fear the Bodo. The Bodo is a trickster. You lean back in your chair. The river feels different now. Before, it was a wilderness of predators, jaguars, piranhas, snakes, things that want to eat you. But the Bodo doesn't want to eat you. He wants to be you. Or at least, he wants to join the party. You check your reflection in your pocket watch. You are wearing a white linen suit. Well, it was white 4 days ago. You are wearing a hat. You realize that of the locals, you look a lot like the Bodo, a stranger, coming from the river, wearing a hat, here to take resources, and maybe steal hearts. Are you the explorer? Or are you the monster in the myth? The heat is rising again. The cafezinho buzz is gone. You feel a headache coming on. It's a throbbing pressure behind your eyes. You touch your forehead. It feels hot. Too hot. You tell yourself it's just the sun. It's just the stress. But deep down, you know the truth. The mosquito from Section 5. The one that got inside the net. The incubation period for malaria is about 10 to 15 days. But in the Amazon, time moves differently. Or maybe it was yellow fever. Or dengue. The logic in your brain starts to slip. The riverbank seems to be vibrating. The trees are whispering. You are about to enter the final stage of the Amazonian initiation. You aren't just observing the jungle anymore. The jungle has entered your bloodstream. You are about to have a fever dream. You are lying in your hammock. Or maybe you are floating on the ceiling looking down at your hammock. You aren't quite sure. The world has lost its edges. The sharp lines of the boat railing, the horizon, and the trees have dissolved into a blurry, vibrating watercolor painting. You are hot, but it isn't the Amazon heat anymore. This heat is coming from the inside out. It feels like someone has replaced your bones with red-hot iron rods. You are shivering violently under 3-wool blankets, yet your skin is burning to the touch. You have joined the club of the tropical fever. You reach for your medicine bottle. Your hand shakes so much the glass rattles against your teeth. You swallow another dose of quinine, and then the sound starts. Reality starts freeing. It is a high-pitched, piercing whistle inside your skull. It sounds like a steam kettle that never stops screaming. This is not the jungle. This is synchronism. This brings us to a mainstream medical fact. The cure is poison. Quinine saves your life by killing the malaria parasite, but the therapeutic dose is dangerously close to the toxic dose. The side effects include tinnitus, ringing the ears, nausea, blurred vision, and, in your current state, vivid, terrifying hallucinations. You are poisoning yourself to stay alive. It is a chemical game of chicken. You close your eyes, but the visions don't stop. You see the river flowing backward. You see the trees walking on their roots like spiders. You see the jaguar sitting in the corner of your cabin, wearing a tuxedo and smoking a cigar. He asks you for a light. It's just a fever. You whisper, stiff upper lip. But is it? This mental collapse brings us to a massive, obsession-level academic debate of the Victorian era, the theory of tropical neurasthenia. In 1896, doctors in London and New York are convinced that the tropical climate itself is a mental pathogen. They believe that white man's constitution is biologically incompatible with the torrid zone. They argue that the relentless heat and humidity overstimulate the nervous system, leading to a condition called tropical neurasthenia. The symptoms: lethargy, irritability, loss of moral character, and finally, madness. They believe that if a European stays in the Amazon too long, he will inevitably degenerate. He will go native. He will stop shaving. He will drink gin for breakfast. He will forget God and Queen. As you lie there, sweating through your mattress, you wonder if they are right. You haven't shaved in 4 days. You drank gin for breakfast. You can't remember the name of the Prime Minister. Is it Salisbury? Or did the Jaguar eat him? The boat engine's rhythm, thump, 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 changes. It sounds like a heartbeat. A giant, wet heart beating under floorboards. You stumble out onto the deck. You need air. The sun is blinding. The river is a sheet of molten gold. You look at the green wall. For days, you have looked at the forest and seen trees. Now, in your delirium, you see what it really is. It is a slow-motion explosion. This is an obscure biological perspective. The botanical war. The jungle isn't peaceful. It is a battlefield. Every tree is fighting a desperate war for light. They are strangling each other. They are poisoning the soil to kill their neighbors. The vines are grappling hooks. The leaves are solar panels deployed in an arms race. You can hear the growing. You can hear the cells dividing. It is a roar of biological conquest. You feel claustrophobia. This is a specific psychological condition known as green sickness or jungle claustrophobia. In the desert, you can see the horizon. On the ocean, you can see for miles. Here, you can never see more than 10 feet into the bush. You are trapped in a corridor. The vegetation is pressing in. It wants to reclaim the space occupied by your boat. If the engine stops for a week, vines will grow over the wheel. If you lie still for a day, moss will grow on your boots. You realize that civilization is not a permanent state. It is a temporary act of gardening. Stop weeding for a month, and the Amazon erases you. A crewman walks past. He looks at you with concern. He offers you a gourd of water. You stare at him. He looks solid. He looks healthy. He looks at home. This brings you to the acclimatization question. Why can he survive here? But you are falling apart. Victorian scientists argued about this for decades. The pessimists, like Robert Knox, said race was fixed. Europeans could never adapt to the tropics. They would always die out unless they kept bringing in fresh blood from the north. The optimists, like Alfred Russel Wallace, argued that it was just a matter of habits. If Europeans stopped wearing heavy wool suits, stopped eating beef, and stopped drinking alcohol, they would be fine. You look down at your tweed suit. It is stained, heavy, and ludicrous. Wallace was right. You are dying of fashion. You are dressed for a tea party in Yorkshire, and you are standing in a steam bath near the equator. Your culture is killing you. You lean over the rail. The water rushes by. You have a sudden urge to jump, to cool off, to let the river take you. The Bodo is down there, the Pink Prince. He looks happy. Maybe if you join him, you won't be hot anymore. Sir, the captain's voice snaps you back. We are turning around. Sir, we have enough rubber. Back to Manaus. Turning around? The words take a moment to sink in through the quinine ringing. You are leaving. You aren't going to die here. A wave of relief washes over you, so strong it almost knocks you down. You're going back to ice, Back to electric fans. Back to doctors who don't use tree sap. You stumble back to your hammock. You collapse. The fever dreams return, but they are softer now. You dream of ice cubes. Giant, clinking ice cubes floating in the river. You dream of a cold wind from the Thames. You have survived the initiation. The jungle chewed you up, tasted your sweat, infected your blood, and decided you were too bitter to finish. You drift into a dark, comatose sleep. The boat turns. The current catches the stern. You are flowing downstream now, speeding up, escaping the green hell. You wake up. The fever is broken. The ringing in your ears has faded to a dull hum. Your skin feels cool, or at least cooler than the air. You sit up in your hammock. You are weak, thirsty, and you smell like a wet dog, but you are lucid. You look out the railing. The scenery has changed. The green wall is broken. You see huts, then houses, then docks. The water has changed too. You are passing the wedding of the waters in reverse. You have left the muddy, chaotic Solomois and are sliding back into the smooth, black mirror of the Rio Negro. And there it is, the dome. The pink and green tiles of the Teatro Amazonas are glowing in the afternoon sun. The electric trams are sparking on the rails. The smoke from the steamships is filling the sky. Manaus, civilization. You should feel relieved. You are back to ice cream, telegraphs, and doctors. You are back to the world where things make sense. But as the Baroness chugs toward the harbor, you feel a strange heaviness in your chest. It looks fake. After 2 weeks in the green hell, the city looks like a toy set. The marble palaces look fragile. The paved streets look ridiculous against the scale of the forest behind them. You realize that this entire city is just a temporary stain on the edge of eternity. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The rubber crash. You are looking at Manaus at its absolute peak in 1896. It is the richest city in South America. But you, the time traveler, know something the rubber barons don't. It is all about to end. Remember Henry Wickham? The man who stole the seeds in Section 1? Those seeds are currently growing into mature trees in British Malaya and Sri Lanka. In just 15 years, around 1912, the Asian plantations will start producing rubber. Asian rubber will be cheaper, cleaner, and more efficient than Amazonian wild rubber. The price will collapse. Overnight, Manaus will go bankrupt. The electricity will be cut off. The opera house will go dark. The marble mansions will be abandoned to the mold. Jaguars will literally walk down the main boulevards again. You're looking at a ghost town that doesn't know it's dead yet. The boat docks. The noise hits you. It isn't the majestic roar of the howler monkey. It is the ugly mechanical screech of cranes, whistles, and shouting traders. It sounds petty. You pack your bag. You fold up your hammock. You feel a pang of sadness. That piece of cotton was your home. It held you while you slept, while you swatted mosquitoes, while you hallucinated. You walk down the gangplank. Your boots hit the cobblestones. Clack. The ground feels hard, unforgiving. It doesn't sway. You stumble slightly. The river waddle. Your body is still trying to compensate for the current. A street vendor approaches you, selling newspapers and roasted nuts. He looks at your dirty suit, your unshaven face, your yellowed eyes. He steps back. You look like a survivor from a shipwreck. You walk past the market. You see the Eurobus. These are black vultures, Cora gypsotratus. In London, birds are shy. Here, the vultures walk on the street like dogs. They are the city's sanitation department. They eat the garbage, the dead fish, and the offal. They look at you with the same cold, assessing gaze as a jaguar. They know that everything in the Amazon, even the city, is eventually just meat. This leads to the final massive academic debate, the hollow frontier. Historians often talk about the frontier, like the American West, as a line that moves forward, turning wilderness into civilization. But in the Amazon, scholars argue is a hollow frontier. The wave of exploitation moves in gold, rubber, logging, extracts everything of value, and then moves on, leaving behind a hollow region of poverty and ecological ruin. Civilization doesn't stay here. It loots and leaves. You have seen the rubber tapper. You have seen the terra preta. You know that the ancient civilizations managed to stay for thousands of years by working with the soil. The rubber barons are trying to work against it. And they will lose. You reach your hotel. The lobby is air-conditioned, well fan-cooled. There's a man playing a piano. You order a gin and tonic. A cold one. The ice clinks against the glass. It is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. But as you sip it, you look out the window. Beyond the red tile roofs, beyond the docks, the river stretches out into the darkness. The sun is setting. You know exactly what is happening out there right now. You know the mosquitoes are rising in a cloud. You know the howler monkeys are clearing their throats. You know the jaguar is waking up and checking the wind. You know the Bodo is surfacing, turning his pink head to look at the moon. You realize that you have changed. The green hell isn't hell anymore. It is just truth. It is life turned up to maximum volume. The city is illusion. The city is the cage. You are safe here, yes, but you are also bored. You take another sip. The quinine tastes bitter, familiar. You wonder if the Baroness is hiring. Maybe they need someone to shovel coal? Maybe you could go back? You shake your head. No, you need a bath. You need a shave. You need to write your book. But you will never be the same. You have the Amazon stare. You have seen the scale of the world. And you realize how small you are. You finish your drink. You put the glass down on the marble table. It leaves a wet ring. You wipe it away with your sleeve. Habit. You walk up the stairs to your room. Real sheets. A real mattress. It feels wrong. It feels too soft. But you are exhausted. The fever, the heat, the fear is all drained away, leaving you empty and heavy. You lie down. You close your eyes. And even though the hotel is silent, in your head, you can still hear it. Thump, thump, thump. The heart of the river, beating. Now the expedition is over. The notebook is closed. The maps are folded. You don't have to watch the tree line anymore. You don't have to listen for the jaguar. You are safe. Let your body sink into the mattress. Imagine it is your hammock, swaying gently, perfectly supporting your back. The air around you is cool and still. The humidity is gone. The fever is gone. Listen to the sound of the rain outside. It isn't the terrifying roar of the Amazon squall on a tin roof. It is a gentle, steady English rain against a window pane. Tap, tap, tap. It is a cozy sound, a safe sound. Imagine the river flowing away from you. The great brown, heavy Solomois. The dark, glassy Negro. They are flowing endlessly to the sea, carrying the leaves, the logs, and the secrets of the forest. They are doing the work. So you don't have to. The water is moving, but you are still. Picture the green wall, but step back from it. Zoom out. See it as a vast, soft blanket of velvet covering the earth. Breathing in, breathing out. It is the lungs of the world, sleeping along with you. The insects have stopped their buzzing. The monkeys are asleep in the canopy, tails wrapped around branches. The river dolphin is drifting in the slow current below. Everything is resting. You are floating, not on a boat, but on the edge of sleep, drifting downstream. Slow, quiet, dark. Let the current take you.